One.
Sorry.
Okay, Erev Tov. Good evening. Thanks for the translation. Here we are in Yeshiva Miftar, studying some Torah. We're doing our chasidic workshop, and Olaf is kind enough to help us with the webcam, and we'll see how things go. We're studying. We started last week. I'll just do a brief summary. For those, I think Eitan was not here last week.
The spirit was here.
Yeah, the spirit, always. I wanted to discuss with you how it went today, earlier, but later, not right now. Not right now.
Great.
So last week we started about chasidic stories. We had done for a while a chasidic approach to God, finding God within yourself, the personal search. And we moved on to touch a little bit what is a Hasidic story and why is it so powerful. We mentioned briefly that we saw in the name of Rabbi Nachman, I believe, that when we dream in stories. Dreaming is sometimes considered to be 1/60th of prophecy, a little bit of, sometimes prophecy comes to us in dreams. We mentioned that the Torah tells many stories. Torah starts with stories. God tells stories, so why shouldn't we tell stories? And sometimes a story can express an idea that, and somehow an idea which can touch you, and can reach you, and affect you in a way in which only using the rational channel of rational thought and exposition and teaching somehow doesn't have the same impact on yourself, on your personality, and on your avodat Hashem. And if that's what you're searching after. You're not just searching for, I want to study intellectually, I want to increase my knowledge of Torah. It's not just about knowledge on an intellectual level, but it's actually developing myself, it's actually becoming closer to God, developing my spirituality. Then it gives us a little bit of an introduction to why a different avenue, a different method was being searched for, and in particular the story. Last week we actually started with two tiny little stories, less stories and more parables. We did two parables. One was called, help me out, The Turkey Prince, I believe, was the first one we did, a parable by Rabbi Nachman.
About food.
Sorry?
The one of the food poisoning.
And the second one was about the tainted grain.
The LSD
grain. LSD. Right.
Can you say a bit more about the distinction you made between like rational arguments and stories?
I'll try to. We're going to less talk about it and actually try to experience it. We're going to read a story now in the coming lesson. It's perhaps the most famous of Rabbi Nachman's stories. And we'll see how it works, whether it does impact us, whether we're drawn in or not. But I think a story is... in the last, I'd say 20 years, storytelling has become much more appreciated in the Western society, Western educational thought. Used to be a storyteller was not a very high level or highly valued occupation. And somebody's mother was a storyteller. I have a friend whose mother was a storyteller. And your mother is a poet. It's not the same thing, but it's becoming more and more appreciated. Of course, we all know that in primitive societies where they don't have books at all, the way in which the tradition was passed on was through stories. And we spoke about literature a little bit. That literature somehow has a powerful impact on you, and you're not quite sure exactly why. What is it about reading that you love? Whether it's escapism or whether it's something that it touches or fires up your imagination in a way that rational study does not. There are many elements to it, but I suggest that we see. Let's try. Let's give it a chance. and we'll start. So the first story here, I'll hand out the sheets right now. Of course, if you're listening to this on the webcam, you don't have the pages in front of you, so you're going to have to try to listen as best. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Do you have page 3 and 4? There's actually 2 pages here. So whatever you have, there's, who's missing a page 1? Who's missing page 1 and 2? Here's a 3 and 4 for somebody. Here you have the same. You have the same. You need this. And here, who needs a page 1?
Do you have a page 1?
Here's
Ken.
No, here's page 1. Okay. Terrific. Okay. One more word of, you know what? Before we continue with the words of introduction, the first line says, Rabbi Nachman said, I told a story while on a journey. And everyone that heard it had thoughts of repentance and listened to the story. The truth is that he says that he actually told this story on a journey. There's a nigun, the real Breslover Chasidim, they have a particular specific nigun for Sipurei Ma'asiyot. These, all of Rabbi Nachman's stories were collected in a book called Sipurei Ma'asiyot. As a matter of fact, you may not have heard of this, but Rabbi Nachman is famous for his stories. And he only started teaching his stories 3 years before he died. He died very young, but he taught for many, many years, and there's volumes of his chasidic drashot and his lessons, which he taught. And then, about 3 years before he died, he reached the conclusion that, and he actually says this, my students, my chasidim, I'm not getting through to you. You're not getting it. There's something that I'm not succeeding in conveying to you. And he came up with this system, this method. He said, I'm going to start telling stories. And he made up stories. He made up stories, not only parables like we saw last time, but actual, you could call them, we'll see, they're of a particular brand. And this is one type of Chasidic story. After Rabbi Nachman, we'll have to go to other types of Chasidic stories. Again, we're not going to, this is one segment in our series. We're not going to spend a whole year on stories, although you could. And if you were a Breslover, you could actually, the stories are studied. And we're going to see that this story can also be studied on very many different levels. But before we study it, and before we even suggest this is a little bit like a parable as well, let's try and sing the nigun. Now, if you've heard it, sing along. If not, bear with me and my bad voice, and I'll try to at least do the nigun. Where's your keyboard, David? Where's the keyboard? Or the guitar? Where's Moshe with his guitar when we need him?
I don't know.
All right. It goes like this. Again. Okay, now that you have the tape, you can replay it. Afterwards, you'll get the recording from Olaf, and you can learn that. It's a great Hasidic nigun. It sounds a little bit like you're on the road. It's a traveling tune. It's it's like you can. almost hear the wheels turning and the bumps in the road and the excitement about going somewhere. And this story also is about a journey. It's about a journey. So let's start without further ado. There once was a king. Hey, Shmuel, just in time. We're just about to start the story. Welcome. Shmuel Navi came in, the prophet. Welcome. Can I have that extra copy? Because that's the next one, right? So we'll just keep them in pairs. Here we go. There once was a king who had 6 sons and 1 daughter. And the daughter was very dear to him. Now, very briefly, you're going to see in a minute that this is very clearly a mashal, a parable. If you know anything about Kabbalah, there are 7 lower sfirot, so the number 6, and then 1 is the 6 shesh ktsavot, the 6 edges, and the 7th sfirah, the last sfirah, is the sfirah of Malchut, and it's a feminine sfirah. It's the element which accepts from all the previous ones. So it's very clear, and of course, whenever we're talking about a king is oftentimes used for Hashem, or if you're going to go Kabbalistically, it might be talking about Kudsha Brichu, and the daughter might be Shchinte. But as we're going to see, there are many elements here that I'm sure Rabbi Nachman meant them. He intended that they are a parable for a story which is told in the Kabbalah about the relationship between God and the world, between us and God. And but before we get into all the layers of meaning, and perhaps all of the nimshal, the explanation of what the parable is pointing to and what it's intending to convey, it's a story. So I suggest the first we're going to do is we'll read the story, appreciate the story, and then I'm going to ask you to give me some of your impressions of the story. I'm going to ask you, while we read the story, to try to think of 1 or 2 incidents or 1 or 2 people that you find particularly interesting. And I'm going to ask you to ask, not to explain, ask. Why did this happen? Why did this person act in this way? I'm wondering, what's the meaning of that? Or I'm wondering why he did that. Or I'm giving you another option now. Not about a particular, not that you're asking why, but something that bothers you. Something that you don't like about the story. I wish it would have turned to the right when it turned to the left. Okay? So we're going to read the story as a story, without thinking about the deeper meaning. And let's see. Of course, the biggest question is, what does it do for you? Where does it take you? And what impression it makes upon you. Okay? There once was a king that had 6 sons and 1 daughter. And the daughter was very dear to him. He adored her very much and spent a great deal of time. One day, when they were alone together, he became angry with her. That happens. As a parent to his children, I can tell you that as much as I love my children and I love spending time with them, sometimes I get angry, sometimes they annoy me. Impetuously, he called out that the evil one should take her away. That night she went to her room, and in the morning, she was gone. Her father was heartbroken, and he searched for her everywhere. The viceroy saw how sad the king was, and requested a servant and a horse, and money for expenses, and he went to look for her. He searched for a long, long time, until he found her. Okay, that's the whole story in a nutshell. Now the story relates how he searched until he found her. We're going to see.
It's not the king, it's the viceroy.
The viceroy finds her. Right, exactly. The viceroy finds her. Searches for her. But that search took a long, long time. And let's see how it happened. He wandered ceaselessly for a long time through deserts, fields, and forests, and searched for her for a very long time. While traveling through a desert, he spotted a path off to the side and thought to himself, since I've already spent so much time walking in the desert and not succeeded in finding her, I will take this path. Perhaps it will lead somewhere inhabited. And he continued walking for a long time. Then he saw a fortress with a number of soldiers standing guard around it. The fortress was very beautiful and well ordered and surrounded by the soldiers. He was very afraid of the soldiers in case they wouldn't let him enter. But then he thought to himself, I will go ahead and give it a try. He left the horse behind and walked to the fortress. The soldiers ignored him and didn't prevent him from entering. He went from room to room unhindered. He came to the main room and saw the king sitting there with his crown on. There was a number of soldiers there, and before the king, some musicians with their instruments. It was all very beautiful, and neither the king nor anyone else questioned him. He saw there all kinds of pastries and tasty food, and he went and he ate, and then went and lay down in a corner to see what would happen there. And he saw how the king gave an order for the queen to be brought in. They went and brought her, and there was great excitement and happiness there with music and singing to accompany the arrival of the queen. They brought for her a chair and sat her next to him, the king, and it was the lost princess. And he saw her and recognized her. Upon looking around, she spotted someone lying in the corner and recognized him. She arose from her chair and went over there and touched him and asked, Do you recognize me? He answered, Yes, I recognize you. You are the lost princess. He asked her, How did you come to be here? She answered, Through my father, the king, shouting at me that which he shouted. And here, this place is the place of no good. Page 2. He related to her how her father was so upset and how he had been searching for her all these years. He asked her, How can I release you? She told him that it would be impossible to release her other than by choosing a place and remaining there for a whole year. And for that whole year, he should yearn to release her. Maybe that place is Yeshivat HaMivtar. I don't know. You have to go somewhere for a whole year. But she doesn't tell him to study, and she doesn't tell him what the place is, but a place. And he should, what should he do that year? Not study. He should yearn for to release her. Sorry? Oh, every single free moment to yearn and to plead and to look forward to releasing me, also to fast. Okay. And on the final day of the year, you should fast and not sleep for the whole 24 hours. And he went and did what she had told him to do. At the end of the year, on the final day, he was fasting and going without sleep, and he went to return to the fortress. On the way, he saw a tree with beautiful apples growing from it. The tree was beautiful to behold, and he went and ate from it. And immediately upon eating the apple, a deep sleep overcame him, and he slept for a very long time. The servant tried to awaken him.
This question, but this is a servant, isn't this a servant?
It's a good question who the servant is, because when he left, he took a servant with him, right? He took an animal and a servant, but then he went
was
to
the servant himself, taking another servant.
the viceroy. He was the viceroy.
The viceroy.
Now, he had with him a helper, but the helper disappeared. Now it seems to be coming back. Maybe it was the queen's servant. We don't know. The servant tried to awaken him, but to no avail. Later he awoke and asked the servant, "Where in the world am I?" And he told him what had happened. The servant related to the viceroy all that had happened and told him, "You have slept for a long time, a few years, and I have been surviving on the fruit." the viceroy was completely brokenhearted. He went there to the fortress and found her. She broke down before him. "If you had only come on that day, you would have rescued me from here. Because of one day, you failed." Still, to go without eating is indeed extremely difficult, especially on the final day, because then the evil inclination is exceptionally powerful. Now the princess tells him that the next time he will have an easier task, and he will not be forbidden to eat, because that was just too difficult for him. Therefore, go back and choose a place to stay, and stay there. Also for a year. Oh, sorry guys, you're not going to get out of staying in Hamiftar for a year. You're going to have to stay in yeshiva at least for a year. Stay there for a year, as before, etc. And on the final day, you can eat. Just make sure not to sleep. And do not drink any wine in order not to fall asleep. Because the most important thing is not to fall asleep. So he went and did all that she had said. On the final day, as he was on his way back, he saw a running stream, colored red, that had the smell of wine. He asked the servant, "Do you see that stream? Surely it should be water, but it is colored red, and it has the smell of wine." So he went and tasted from the stream. Immediately, he fell asleep for a number of years. In fact, he slept for 70 years. In the meantime, many soldiers passed by with all their equipment and everything else soldiers carry with them. The servant hid himself because of the soldiers. Then a carriage passed by, many wagons, carrying the princess. She stopped next to him, got down, and went and sat next to him and recognized him. She tried very hard to wake him up, but he didn't awaken. She began to complain. Such an incredible effort and toil he had expended these many years in order to free her. And on this one day, when he could have freed her, he lost everything. She wept very much about this. That is just so sad, both for him and also for me, after I have been here such a long time, and I have no way to escape. She then took the handkerchief that was covering her hair and wrote upon it with her tears and left it beside him. Stood up, sat back in her carriage, and traveled on. When he finally awoke, he asked the servant, "Where in the world am I?" The servant related to him all that had happened, how many soldiers had passed by, how she had been in the carriage, etc. That she had wept over him and cried how it was such a great pity both for him and for her, etc. Suddenly, he noticed that the handkerchief lying next to him. He asked, "Where did this come from?" The servant replied that she had written on it with her tears. He picked it up and held it to the sun and saw the letters written on it. He read what was written there, how miserable and broken-hearted she was, and that now she was no longer to be found at the fortress, but rather he would have to search for a mountain made of gold and a castle made of pearls. And there you will find me. So he left the servant behind and went alone to search for her. He searched for many years and then thought to himself, "Well, surely a mountain made of gold and a castle made of pearls does not exist anywhere that is inhabited." For he was very well versed in geography. "In which case I will go and search for her somewhere uninhabited." So he went and searched for her for many years, well away from civilization. Then one time, he met a huge man, so large that he could not be considered to be a normal human being at all. He was such an incredible size. The man was carrying a massive tree. A tree so large that one like it had never been seen in any inhabited place. The giant asked him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am a man." He said in amazement, "Well, I have been living in the desert for many years, and I have never seen a man here before." The viceroy told him the whole story and how he was searching now searching for a mountain of gold and a pearl castle. Such a thing couldn't possibly exist, the giant said discouragingly. You are simply fooling yourself with this absurd quest. There is no such thing. The viceroy broke down and cried and said, I am absolutely certain that it really does exist somewhere. The giant discouraged him even more, telling him that people were just telling him foolish tales. The viceroy would not be put off and said that he was absolutely certain that it existed. The giant said, well, in my opinion, it is all utter stupidity. But since you are so obstinate, I'm in charge of all the animals. For you, I will summon them all. They travel all over the world. Perhaps one of them will know of such a mountain and castle. So he called all the different types of animals to come to him, from the smallest to the largest, and asked them. And they all answered that they had never seen such a thing. There, you see, people have just been telling you foolish tales. Listen to me. Go back to where you came from. You will never find it because it does not exist in the world. The viceroy insisted. It certainly does exist. Of that I am certain. So the giant said, well, my brother lives in the desert, and he's in charge of all the birds. Perhaps they would know, seeing that they fly so high in the air. Perhaps they would have seen such a mountain and castle. Go to him and tell him I sent you. He searched for him for many years, until he found another huge man who was also carrying a massive tree, just like the first. He also asked him who he was, etc. The viceroy answered by telling him the whole story, that his brother had sent him to see him. He also tried to discourage him that such a thing doesn't exist. And the viceroy insisted that it did. So he told him, well, I am in charge of all the birds. I will summon them. Perhaps they will know. So he called all the birds to him and asked them all, from the smallest to the largest. And they all answered that they had no knowledge of such a mountain and castle. There, you see, there is no such thing in the world. If you listen to me, go back to where you came from. It simply doesn't exist. The viceroy insisted that it certainly did exist. The second giant told him, further on into the desert, my brother lives. And he is in charge of all of the winds. And they blow all over the world. Perhaps they will know. So he searched for him a number of years, until he found another huge man also carrying a huge tree. He asked the viceroy the same questions as the others, and the viceroy answered as before, telling him the whole story. He also tried to discourage him, but the viceroy insisted as before. The third giant told the viceroy that he would summon all the winds for him and ask them. He called them, and all the winds came to him. He asked them all, and not a single one of them knew of such a mountain or castle. He told him, you see, people are just telling you foolish tales. The viceroy wept bitterly and said, I am absolutely certain that it exists. In the meantime, he saw another wind approaching. The giant was very angry with it. Why did you come late? I decreed that all the winds should come, so why didn't you come with them? The wind answered, I was held up because I had to carry a princess to the mountain of gold and a pearl castle. The viceroy was overjoyed. The one in charge of the winds asked the wind, what is valuable there? In other words, what things are regarded in that place as precious and important? And the wind answered, everything is very valuable there. The one in charge of the winds said to the viceroy, since you have been searching for such a long time for the princess and put so much effort into the search, it could be that now you would have a further prevention due to a lack of money. Therefore, I will give you a purse. Every time that you put your hand into it, you will find there money. Nice to have such a longing. He then ordered the wind to carry the viceroy there. The storm wind came and carried him there, brought him to the gate. Soldiers were stationed there, and they prevented him from entering the city. So he put his hand into the purse and pulled out some money, bribed them, and was able to enter into the city. It was a very beautiful city. He went to a wealthy person there and bought himself some food, since it would take some time and all his wisdom and intelligence to rescue her. And the way in which he rescued her is not related. But eventually, he did succeed in rescuing her. So Rabbi Nachman doesn't tell us, Mazel tov, yeah, he got her out, but he doesn't tell us how exactly it happened. More, he tells us about the journey, about the search, about the things he had to encounter. And I don't want to get too much into the nimshal, into the parable, what it's about. We're going to talk about the story itself. Even though I know you're thinking that, isn't this similar to the Gemara we learned yesterday in Baba Batra about the winds and the stone, the mountain, and what else do we have there? But we're not going to go there just yet. I'm going to go back to the question I asked you. First of all, I asked you 2 or 3 questions. One was, do you have any questions to a particular question, a particular incident, why it happened the way it is? Number 2, is there something about the story that bothered you? You would rather, why did it have to go this way? And the third question is, how did it impress you? What impressed you about the story? What impression did it make? Okay? Bevakasha. The floor is yours. Rabbi Nachman has told his story. Now we're going to try to digest.
I mean, like if it's only in the if it's got a hint of meaning, like there's in parables, it might have some value. But like
just as a story,
the story is,
you don't like it.
It's completely just useless.
You're not much into fantasy.
I don't want to say this because I don't want to say negative things, but the story. Fantasy, I like fantasy. I like this kind of style, You
do like fantasy, but not the story.
But
why?
The problem with the story is the ending. The ending makes the rest of the story useless.
Good.
It negates the rest of the story because if the whole story, the point of the whole story is to find the princess to bring her back, right? When you listen to is valuable to you. You want to have this resolved. You want to have a resolution to an ending, a resolution. Usually that's how literature is.
Right. As a short story, it's not what you're used to. Right, this is a good point about Rabbi Nachman's stories in general, and about Hasidic stories also. Not necessarily are they, if you were to study them in a literature class, would they say, well, this is very, amazing short story, because we know that the things mentioned at the beginning should be mentioned at the end, and there's maybe an element of surprise somewhere at the end, and there's some kind of development here. It seems like really he's more interested in the process and not really about what happens in the end and having it work together as a piece of literature. So that's a good point. Other comments, questions?
Why are there 3 giants? That's a lot of giants. They do the same thing and ask the same questions. There's like a lot of repetition. There's also
the repetition you're saying bothers.
There's a lot of repetition.
It bothers
or
me.
It's a question. Why did he do it that way? Why are the 3 that?
And it's like, then you know what's going to happen. He's going to call other things in his control, and they're all going to say no, and probably the last one's going to say something different because he has to get this.
Okay. It's a little too obvious, you said. Yeah.
And also, why is he such a pathetic weakling? This guy.
The viceroy.
Yeah, I mean,
human nature.
Perseverance.
He goes past. That's a better way of framing it. How, if he can't resist an apple and a stream flowing with wine, can he continue pursuing this princess for almost 100 years?
Many years. Each time, each stage is many years. It makes a big difference.
Without it, the story would have ended the first 5 sentences.
No, but your first reaction I liked better, Shmuel. Your reaction was, you called him such a weakling. You said, no, he's showing tremendous perseverance.
This is like the character of a person, a human being, And certain things he perseveres very much, Other things you will give up, give in.
You might have a
right
weakness
away.
for apples or
I mean,
for
it's
wine.
human nature.
and
It's the Yisara and Yisara Tov, that's what he's showing you.
sure, there's a lot here to learn about human
The
nature.
thing about it was that what was his motivation for doing all this? It's not like the king offered him his daughter or offered him great, gold and jewelry.
Excellent question. Excellent question. What was the viceroy's motivation?
Why did the princess move to this like fancy gold place?
She didn't. The king moved her and she was captive.
Why
And he
did
kept giving
why
her
did he
misuse
Somehow
of
she
her.
was captured by, was it the evil one? She taken her
why,
away
why did she
into
go
a place.
from the place where there's no good to this like golden mountain with pearls?
It's unclear. It's unclear. I assumed that she was taken, and she had a chance to be rescued there, and because he didn't rescue her at that time, it would be too late because she was going to be moved to this other mountain of gold with the castle of pearls. But it's clearly against her will. She says she writes in tears
Is the
on
mountain
her handkerchief about her yearning and how terrible it is for her to be there.
like is the other mountain worse? It sounds like better.
Why? Because it's gold and pearls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody can find it. It's
Okay.
like God knows where. It's like the deserted
But
mountain.
everybody's looking
Sounds
for
pretty
it.
lonely.
Wait, but
What do you
the
say,
rabbi,
Kevin?
The rabbi,
What was that?
I just wanted to ask, the rabbi around that one, right? Just like as far as he put this together in writing.
He told it
the
Baal
grammar
Peh.
is
He
like-
told it orally. No, and then it was written up not by Rabbi
Well,
Nachman.
actually wrote this
Most
up,
of
this
Rabbi
person.
Nachman's teachings were written up by his student Rabbi Natan.
But not right.
Rabbi
No,
Natan, Rabbi Natan.
I'm reading one, but it's written extremely like poorly, as far as the grammar and common.
Well, this is a translation from the Hebrew.
Like,
The Hebrew is actually worse. They did.
Yeah.
They actually fixed it up a little bit. But the Hasidim,
Yeah.
they're very medayek. They read exactly the turns of phrase and the way it was written as well. And even though you could say it could be because that's the way colloquial speech was in the days in Russia, in the Ukraine, where Rabbi Nachman taught, they actually make a big deal about the repetitions and what words are repeated, what words are not repeated. So at this stage, though, it's a good question. The language is unique.
I think a better question is why was this guy being tested? Why wasn't the king being tested? The king didn't do anything. He wished her away, and he just sat in his butt while this guy went and found her.
Okay,
I mean,
the
guy
truth is,
the guy
you're
is-
already adding an element of interpretation. The story doesn't say that anybody's being tested.
He is being tested because she tells him, go and do this, and let's see if you can do it. He comes back, oh, it was too hard. Go and do this, a little bit easier. He fails. Oh, now go and do this. I mean, he's being tested all through.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
you know.
Just pointing out that it doesn't actually say the word test in here.
Where did
There's a certain regimen which he must fulfill in order for him to be successful.
Okay, so
And
then why
you're
is
right,
she,
he fails now.
why is she giving that? It's as if it's coming from her. Shouldn't it be coming from the evil one? The evil one should be dictating.
She
You need
seems to
do-
have some kind of knowledge how to
Oh,
get
I
around the
didn't say-
system,
I
how to
didn't
get
say-
around the evil one, right?
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Other questions, other
Seems
comments?
like a long period of persistence
Mhm.
and one short period of weakness. And then that is a dip. And then there's a long period of persistence, short period of weakness, and a dip.
Well, they say
Right,
it's a
right,
word, and
right,
someone said it.
yeah. Uh-huh. David, anything? Questions, something? Which part would you like have to go on a little bit differently? I think we heard from Eitan already, he would like the end to be different. He thought the end was lacking. But just something.
But there's
We don't hear how he released her. We know, we hear, the final, there's sort of a happy ending, but we don't really know about how exactly it happened, how it got there. Any,
I want to change the story. What you think?
or something that
I don't know why.
is interesting to you.
I kind of want to know why he didn't give up because he clearly should have.
Characteristic.
Well, that's what I asked. What was his motivation behind it?
Yeah. In particular, if I may I can continue to your question, when he's speaking to the first giant, I think he repeats it 3 or 4 times. I know, I am absolutely certain that it exists. Right? He says that a number of times. And I'm absolutely certain.
And
that
his
it
evidence
exists.
is after waking up from 70 years of sleep, his servant told him the story and he read on a handkerchief with
Do you think that's his evidence? That I believe that even before the handkerchief, no, he was probably certain of it even before the 70 years in the handkerchief.
No, but
I think the first cycle when he was like waiting for the year with the wine, and why was he absolutely certain?
Certain of what?
That there is such a mountain with a mountain of gold, and that the queen, not the queen, the princess is there.
You never heard of the mountain until...
Okay, yeah, that was just from the handkerchief, yeah?
It was just from the handkerchief and from the servant.
From the servant, okay. So, that's a good question. Why was he so certain? Good question.
I want to know, if he had a horse, why was he walking through the desert and not riding through the desert?
It's also
you can ask like a question about like every single word of the
Any questions?
No, I just have some what I've learned in the story.
Okay, good. Because that was my third question. What did the story do to you, for you? How did it impact you? You're saying, what did I learn? That's a similar question, but it's not something meant. Yeah.
Always when you are doing something, you have to have some persistence, and you don't go through some hardships, you have to just continue with what you are doing.
You have to be persistent. That's something you learned from the story. Okay.
What were the lessons in that meant to do that?
That's a question which is nagging at you. What did he mean when he was making up this whole story and all these stages and details? That's a nagging question. I agree.
Usually the princess is like, you know, the likeness likened to the people of Israel, to the Am Israel, Bnei Israel, you know, and you know, like the king is to Hashem, and queen of the princess to the people.
So you're also wondering how it works, what the nimshal is,
maybe,
who the daughter
I
is,
want
and
to
the princess.
suggest maybe that there's something to do with kind of God, like kind of like, in a way, kind of like turning away from the people of Israel and the destruction of the temple, especially the second temple.
Okay. You're suggesting an interpretation. I want to take a few more minutes on the story itself before we get to the nimshal. How did this story impact you? As far as I'm concerned, this was an experience for me. That first of all, that was probably the longest I spoke uninterrupted in a shiur in yeshiva for a long, long time. And I believe also it was the longest attention, the greatest attention. I think you guys were gripped. I think it was a gripping story, and it drew you in, and you're waiting to see what's going to happen next. If I'm not mistaken, you tell me otherwise. So that's part of it. What else? What other? How did the listening to the story, or how did the story impact you? Just on the level of hearing a story of this kind of fantasy fairy tale. I don't know.
I mean, it's just there's so many things to. It was going to different directions. It wasn't a cohesive story. It wasn't really grip me. Or just after fifth paragraph, so where's it going with this? It didn't really hit me.
It didn't hit you. It didn't hit you because it was just all over the place. There's just too many details, maybe, and too many stages.
Exactly.
Okay. David, how about you? How did you like the story?
I like
how did you feel during the story?
I like how everybody was very willing to help each other. The giants were willing to help.
The birds. Yeah.
And the princess was very understanding when, even though he ate the apple, she was like, it makes sense because the evil inclination was pretty strong, and she trusted him. I think that's another one interesting part.
That's an interesting point. There's not much confrontation in the story. The hardest confrontation is when the giant is angry that he's so persistent.
When the guards stop him from doing it and he has to bribe.
And the guards stop him. Good. But other than that, the rest people are trying to be helpful. And she's very sensitive to him. And the king, even at the beginning, the king is very happy. He adored her. He spent a great deal of time with her. There was a moment where he actually... how does it say here? Impetuously he called out. In the Hebrew it's Nizreka mipiv. Somehow got thrown out of his mouth, this curse. The evil one should take you away. But that was a momentary lapse. Other than that, he was...
He would teach us Lashon Hara. Just like when he says...
Guard your tongue,
exactly.
Absolutely. This whole thing started because the king said this this statement, and the king apparently, whatever he
The
said.
chasidic, I don't think it was a chasidic master that gave a story about saying every time you compared speaking with telegraphs, every time you say you say something, is writing, and Malachim is writing it down,
Yes.
and therefore ultimately they're going to judge you. So this king basically by opening his mouth, just and it'll be a perfect step for perfect science. And
Power of speech
Exactly.
could be learned from this story, absolutely. So perseverance. What else?
It seems it was the first challenge, the second challenge, and the third challenge. The first challenge, he goes into the castle, gets unhindered by the guards, nobody stops him from looking around, and he gets challenged by the princess, and he fails the challenge. And the challenge gets easier the next round, and he fails the challenge. Then the challenge gets almost impossibly hard,
Yeah.
and he succeeds.
Right. Progression is unclear. Why it seems to be going back and forth. This is a little bit easier, and then
The third one, they wouldn't let him.
Right. Okay, so there's a number of elements. I see the clock tells us that we have only very few moments left. So maybe I'll just mention a little bit about the Nimshal. Sorry? Oh, they're just preparing dinner, and you can never be late for dinner. I'm not expecting you to fast for a whole year, not even for 24 hours, and you're even allowed to sleep a little. Not in sheer, of course, but let's take one more minute to talk about who's searching for who and what that can mean. I think we all experienced the power of the story, and once we now connect this to the meaning behind it, then what Rabbi Nachman is trying to teach his Chasidim about their Avodat Hashem, first of all, on the basic level, you could say he's teaching them about the power of words, teaching them about stick-to-itiveness. It's a wonderful word I love to use. Stick-to-itiveness and perseverance, and about understanding, perhaps, being helpful to others, being sensitive to others, and appreciating that sometimes we have a very long journey. I remind you, first line, Rabbi Nachman said, I told the story while on a journey. The story is about the journey. It's not about the denouement, the end, the pinnacle, the great final release, escape of the princess from the evil one, but it's about the journey that this viceroy took in order to release her. Okay, so just in the last minute, the standard approach is as it appears in the Zohar and in the Tikkunei HaZohar and Rabbi Natan. Many stories we have of Rabbi Nachman, we don't have the Nimshal. And Rabbi Nachman he himself never told us what he meant by the giants and what he meant by the castle and this whole process. But we do have many commentaries, and one of them or a few of them actually, were given by Rabbi Natan, who was his right-hand man, his scribe, he essentially is the filter through which many times we can understand and appreciate Rabbi Nachman. And he says, just the most simplest starting point for a Nimshal, in the introduction to the book called Tzipurei Ma'asiyot, Stories by Rabbi Nachman, he has two introductions. In the second introduction, he gives an example, because when Rabbi Nachman when this book was published, he got a lot of flack. What are you doing? You should be teaching Torah. You should be saying chasidic drashot, homilies, and explanations of Torah and Chumash and Mishnayot and Gemara. What are you doing telling stories? And so in the second time it was published, he wrote a second introduction where he gave an example of this story. That it all has deep meaning, it all has, each element has a parallel rationale, a meaning, a representation in the Kabbalistic world. And just to finish off, the Zohar says, the daughter is, I hinted to at the beginning, the daughter is the Sphira of Malchut. the Sphira, which is a feminine Sphira, or in a parallel understanding of the Kabbalah, daughter is the Shekhinah. In Kudsha Brichu, one part of God, or one aspect, is always searching to unite, to unify. Kudsha Brichu Shechinte, if you've ever heard, if you've ever said, in some Sidurim it appears, the L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu, before every mitzvah. Some people say before the prayers. L'Yachte Shem Yudke Bevavke, to unite, to reunite. The Zohar tells the story of the search for unification of the Kudsha Brichu, which is a masculine element of God, with the Shekhinah, with the divine presence. So we're searching for, and to take it on a very, very basic level, we might be asked here to identify with the Viceroy. We are searching for the divine presence. We're searching for a connection to God. Sometimes it's very hard to find. We have to go through many, many obstacles. We have to search for a long time. We get so close, and then we mess up. We falter. But ultimately, and at least the way the story ends, the Viceroy finds and is united with this princess, the Shekhinah. Perhaps somehow you are able to connect and unify with the divine presence. And we'll have to continue next time, perhaps analyzing in a little more detail what the Nimshal could be. But as a beginning, I think this is, first of all, it's a wonderful story. I hope you all have nice dreams tonight. Maybe you'll dream about, not just about princesses, but about giants and trees and the gold, mountains of gold, and rivers of wine. Maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have apples and wine for dinner tonight. Stop here.
That's like it.
Good night. Okay.